take from you what you tried to take from us.
Welcome everyone to another action figure review. Today I have the PC Toys Smith, which is the 1/12 scale collectible based on Agent Smith from The Matrix. And those of you who are familiar with this kind of product, it is obviously third party, unlicensed, meaning they don't have the rights to put any official names or titles on their packaging. So it is kind of a custom made character. But PC Toys have built up their name over the years. They have produced some excellent figures, including some from the Matrix line. So this is the fourth from those movies. I do have the other two Neos and Trinity as well. And I'm glad they finally given us Agent Smith. And even though it is unlicensed, you can kind of tell that this is based on those films because of that green coding. They've still used the name Smith rather than Agent Smith. And they've kept it nice and simple without any pictures on the packaging. So there's not much to look on this, so we can get it open and take a closer look. So before we take a look at the figure itself, I wanted to show you all of its content inside its packaging, and never underestimate a third-party product when it comes to the quality of presentation. It is kind of expected considering the price, but that's not always the case for these unlicensed products, so props to PC Toys. So here's a quick overview of all the accessories included: the alternative head sculpt, the sunglasses, a gun, interchangeable hands, and that transparent earpiece. And of course I'll put all these accessories on the figure later on. And we also get this display stand, which we have seen before by PC Toys. So here is the figure out of its packaging, Smith, aka Agent Smith from The Matrix. And my first impressions, I gotta say, I do like it in terms of the lightness, the build, the scale. And I feel that considering they made a decent Neo and Trinity before, Agent Smith was always going to be a bit more straightforward. And that's because it is a man in a suit. And when it comes to custom made soft goods, I guess a lot of characters are just in a suit. Whereas Neo and Trinity's costumes were a bit more complicated. So first impressions, I think it's a decent likeness. Now in terms of the actual head sculpt to Hugo Weaving and then the accessories, we're going to take a look at them in more detail later on. But in terms of the build, I do like it. So this is where all the money goes into in terms of soft good characters. You can see that they've used all of it in terms of cloth apart from his shoes. And it is a man in a suit, but sometimes it can also not look right. I've seen before figures where they can look too baggy or too big, but I think this one fits pretty well. And I remember Agent Smith wasn't exactly muscular, but he was quite stocky in the film, and I think they've got the scale right here. So you can see that it's nicely fitted with the tie. There's a silver clip as well. And I noticed a lot of suits kind of have the button opened up, but this one you can see it's nicely fitted. And I believe they've used some sort of magnet as well, so to hold it in, which is quite clever. I do like that. And then opening up, you can see with the tie, the belt as well. So it's a nicely fitted suit overall. And then you can see for the arms out of the packaging, it is the relaxed palms. And then we have some shiny smart shoes. And then this is the back. And then we can take a look at the head sculpt. Now I would say it's around 75 to 80%. I think his trademark look was more with the sunglasses, so we're going to try that on later on. And I did like the PC Toys likeness to Neo and Trinity, probably Neo more. For this one, I think it's kind of got that Hugo Weaving likeness, but obviously it's not 100% like him. I'm not too sure in terms of unlicensed product if they have some sort of face scanning technique like the other brands, or did they all hand carve this. I'm pretty sure they use some sort of technology, but I'm not sure if they can get it spot on considering it's still unlicensed. So first impressions, I do like the scale, and I think the likeness is definitely there. So it's a bit more simple as it's a man in a suit compared to Neo or Trinity, but this is what Agent Smith is about. So we're going to try out some of his other accessories as well, but I think the next thing to test out would be the articulation. So for the movement of this figure, it is kind of important for all the Matrix characters as they're in a martial arts pose, some sort of flying pose, and Agent Smith is kind of no different. Of course, for him compared to Neo, I guess he can kind of just be standing there with the gun, but it's still quite important to have Agent Smith fighting Neo in a lot of the scenes. So we're going to test out the head sculpt first, and I believe, like the previous PC toys, the head is actually connected together with the neck, so it's one sculpt. So if I move the head, it's going to move the neck as well. So it can go left and right, and then downwards not so much, as you can see, because the neck is connected. So this one you got to be a bit more careful, just tilt it slightly forward. Upwards, I guess not so much, but side to side as well, not so much. So since that's the problem when you have the head with the neck, is there are some limitations. And then for the arms, again, for custom made figures, since it's soft cloth, sometimes you got to be a bit careful, you don't want to rip any of the parts. So I'm going to do this very slowly. Move the arms forwards and then backwards. So it's not going to be that smooth compared to a sculpted character, but it does have a swivel, but the jacket does kind of get in the way, but you can feel it. And then there's the arm bend, and then for the hand there is a swivel and there's a hinge as well. And then for the body, custom made figures normally don't have two parts, I believe. This may have it, but you can't really tell as the clothes are in the way compared to a sculpted one, but it can go side to side. And then there's a crunch forwards and backwards. It's kind of like a rebound. When you push it back, it kind of pushes it back up. So that's a bit different. Didn't expect that. And then side to side as well. But most of the time I believe Smith is buttoned up. And then for the legs, he kicks forwards, backwards not so much, and I don't want to do it too much because, you know, for trousers they can split, so be very careful. It does the split slightly, and then there's a full knee bend, which is really good. And there's also some sort of foot movement, I believe, like a twist side to side. And then for the shoes, obviously there is rotation, there is a hinge left and right. No toe hinge for this figure. So articulation is okay, but kind of like your custom made figures with this cloth, there are some limitations. So out of this packaging we have these relaxed hands. So in terms of the interchangeable ones, we have some closed fists for the fight poses, and then we have some trigger hands, and then on the left we have kind of like a grapple hand, and one for the right hand, which is to change Neo into Smith as well, which is a really cool effect. So let's try out the rest of the accessories, and I'm going to start off with the sunglasses. And if you're familiar with PC toys, it's normally a small plastic piece that is very thin and fragile, so be very careful. And what it does is it sits on top of the head sculpt, and to me it improves the look. And obviously with the eyes covered, I guess it does make the likeness even better, and I would most likely keep it like this. And then the second accessory is the gun, the pistol, which is obviously very important. And you just place it either on the left or right hand, but I believe Agent Smith is right-handed. And the final accessory is he also includes this earpiece, and this is actually very unique. It's pretty rare to see something like a small figure have this, but if you look on his head sculpt on the right, there is a small hole where you will have to punch it in, so I'm going to do that now. Okay, so about 6 or 7 minutes later I managed to get the earpiece in, so it does take a bit of time. So I do like this accessory, but it's just a bit difficult to get it into the head sculpt. So what you do is punch the piece into the ear, and what's meant to happen is you're meant to bend this wire around the ear, and then it hooks all the way around to the bottom, and then you kind of just place it inside his jacket. But as you can see, when it's not hooked around the ear, it can look very long and even out of place. So it does take a bit of time just to get it in place, and that is one thing that's quite difficult on this figure. I know it's meant to be very detailed, but as you can see, once you kind of get it off the ear, it can look out of place. So you've got to try and bend the wire around the ear and just hold it in for it to look right. Otherwise it can look a bit off. And since the earpiece is on, you have to do it without the sunglasses. Otherwise it's quite difficult to do both at the same time. So I have to put the sunglasses back on, and then you can try and wrap it around the ear still. Otherwise it can look out of place. So that's one thing that took me about 6 or 7 minutes. So now let's switch up the alternative head sculpt. So what you get for this one is an aggressive face. And I think the lightness isn't as good as the original. But I guess anyone with an angry face, I guess you don't kind of have that look again. So I think it's a nice option to have, definitely. And we're going to put the sunglasses on as well. And you also get a trademark look of Agent Smith. But honestly, I do prefer the original one. And for this one, you can also see on the right ear, there is a small hole for you to punch in the earpiece. And here is the look of the Agent Smith figure on the display stand. And one other thing, as it's soft cloth, you can remove the outer jacket to give this look of Agent Smith. And I'm sure it featured in one of the films at some point. And this is a bonus, as sometimes in custom made figures, when you remove the jacket, it's actually not a long sleeve shirt, where it's a sleeveless one. So this one they definitely got right. So now with some size comparisons, starting off with the previous Matrix line of PC toys. So we have a Neo figure from Matrix Reloaded. And then we also have Trinity. And as you can see, they scale up really well. And then I can also bring in the previous first Matrix Neo. And this would make a really good subway fight with these two. And here it is next to some of the previous Matrix figures from the older lines, with the N2 toys Morpheus and the McFarlane toys Agent Smith. And here it is next to some Hasbro Marvel Legends suited bodies with Tony Stark and Logan. Now for my final thoughts on Smith from PC Toys. Firstly, this is an excellent representation of Agent Smith from The Matrix, from the face likeness to his build to the trademark accessories. Only recently have I picked up more and more third-party licensed figures, as this may be the 7th in my collection. And what I like about these is you get characters you would probably never get from the so-called top companies. And just like the Neo and Trinity figure, I'm just glad we have another modern day fully articulated Matrix figure. So extra points for that. Now, is this perfect? No, I feel there are some improvements, like the earpiece could have been done better, maybe stuck on a head. But I guess this would have lessened the extra look, as we have two head sculpts which you can have with or without it. There's also some limitations to the articulation with the soft materials, but this is kind of expected. So overall, you can't really ask for more. It has a good likeness. You can pose him in a fight mode, flying mode with the base, with or without the jacket, the sunglasses or not, and there's the alternative aggressive face look. And just having these side by side with the rest of the line in the PC toys with the right poses, this makes an amazing display. So overall, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe, and be sure to check out my Neo and Trinity reviews with the links in the description below. Stay tuned for more reviews, news and collections. Thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you on the other videos.